Hello students, so we left off last class period talking about the cotton boom and the cotton south. So we're continuing on with the economic transformations from the time frame of 1800 to 1848. So getting into technological innovation and labor, the spread of innovation. So by the 1820s, American-born artisans, they had basically replaced the British immigrants at the cutting edge of the technological innovation. Because remind you, the Industrial Revolution started in Britain. Everything America had and was, it came from Britain. So between the 1820s to 1860, the number of patents issued by the U.S. Patent Office, it rose from 200 to 4,000 a year. So America craftsmen, they pioneered the development of machine tools, which is a key term for you guys. And so machine tools, they're basically machines that made parts for other machines. So as mass production spread, the American Industrial Revolution, it came of age. Industrial Revolution started in Britain, top of 1800s, of course. Everything that started in Britain trickled to the United States a little later on. What came with Industrial Revolution is a whole lot of things that we will continue to discuss throughout this course. And so when the American Industrial Revolution came about, mass production also came about. And so this is when reasonably priced products such as Remington rifles, Singer sewing machines, and other Yale locks, they became household names in the United States and abroad. And that's basically because it was mass production. A lot more people were able to get them. Things became a little more reasonable in price as well, too. And this right here is a picture of McCormick's Reaper. And so wage workers and the labor movement. So remind you guys, we're talking about the foundations of America. So basically what we know of, America as today, our politics, our government, our laws, the foundation of how, everything is pretty much ran, it comes from this time frame. And so remind you the way that labor is today, unions, the way we work, all of these things started from something and somewhere. And so free workers, they form unions, and this is following the American Revolution. So you have many craft workers, they pretty much espouse artisan republicanism, which is a key term as well too. And so artisan republicanism is basically an ideology of production based on liberty and equality. And so they saw themselves as small-scale producers equal to one another and basically free to work for themselves. So, a modern-day entrepreneur. And so as the outwork and the factory system spread, more workers became wage earners who pretty much labored under the control of an employer. So things have not changed. So unlike young women who embraced factory work because it freed them from parental control and domestic service, men, they brittled at their status as supervised wage workers instead of being free workers or union workers. And so some wage earners with traditional crafts that required specialized skills, they ended up forming unions, which is also a key term. And so with the unions, they basically bargain with their master artisan employers over wages, hours, benefits, and control of the workplace with, some success. And so, unions are still popular today. You have unions for teachers, nurses, plumbers, welders, electricians. Most people who are within a union, they get paid top dollar in their state for their city or for their job title. So, you know, in the beginning, unions had it was a lot of things that came with it. But artisans and other occupations, they were less successful in preserving their pay and working conditions, which caused the new industrial system split. And this was self-employed craftsmen and wage-earning workers. And so this split is basically still there today. You either have the people who are earning the dollar or the people who are also earning the dollars while providing the dollar as well, too. This right here is a picture of a woodworker. I didn't finish this one. I'm sorry. So for labor ideology, in 1842, Chief Justice Lemuel Shaw of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, he upheld the right of workers to form unions and call strikes. But many judges, they continued to resist unions by basically forbidding strikes. So for years, from this time frame and even after 1865 until the 1900s, the labor movement was violent. Many people died. Many people were killed just because they were basically protesting work pay, conditions, benefits, and things of that nature. So some of the things that we have at and on our jobs today that we might not think is a big deal, a lot of people, suffered at the hands of that. So union leaders, they also expanded artisan republicanism by advancing a labor theory of value, which is also a key term. And this basically argued that the price of goods should reflect the labor required to make them. So basically something that costs, 30 cents to make, you shouldn't charge no more than a certain percent of that. So basically you're being greedy if it costs 30 cents to make and you're charging $3 for it. So that's the whole concept of the labor theory of value. And so this theory, it also maintained that profits should primarily go to the producers instead of where it usually goes, the top. So the growth of cities and towns. So the expansion of industry and trade, it dramatically increased America's urban population. And so just as I said, the American Industrial Revolution, industrialization, it brought about a lot of things that still basically plague us as Americans today. Urbanization. With urbanization comes crime, comes, red line and gentrification, suburbanization. It's a lot of things that goes hand in hand with the concept of industrialization. And so the fastest growth, it occurred in the new industrial towns that sprouted along the fall line. And this is where rivers basically descended rapidly from the Appalachian Mountains to the coastal plain. And so as the Midwestern population grew through the 1830s and the 1840s, places like St. Louis, Detroit, and especially Buffalo and Chicago, they also emerged as a dynamic center of commerce and manufacturing. So all of these cities that I just listed right here, 1830s, 1840s, drastically within the next 100 years, it's a drastic change in population. And that largely comes from the Great Migration. St. Louis, Detroit, Buffalo, Chicago, all of them basically became places where, African Americans barely were, to African Americans being the dominant population. And a lot of those places still hold African Americans being the dominant population. And so the old Atlantic seaports, places such as Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Charleston, and even New York City, they remain important for their foreign commerce and increasingly as centers of finance and small-scale manufacturing. And so those port cities were also important for everything that was basically imported and exported. And at this time, 1840, this is what we have in America. So the rest of the West is not yet, we're not over this, this far as of yet. Remind you, some of Louisiana is still a part of Texas. Places like, Cameron Parish, Lake Charles. And so we'll get there, I think, next chapter. This is a view of Cincinnati. Cincinnati was one of the, coastal cities.